I've mentioned in a lot of these Star Wars figure-by-figure reviews how I only collect original trilogy figures, but they have added up over time, and I don't exactly have the greatest amount of space to display them. There's a few little dioramas set up around my office, different places I've managed to wedge figures in, no Antilles pun intended, but I don't have everything on display. But I do have some of my favorites, and that's kind of what's cool. One day I'll have everything. But you can definitely tell which ones are my favorites by which ones actually stick out and get display space. And one of the Power of the Jedi Deluxe figures is honestly one of my favorite figures of the whole line, and I still can't believe I only own one of these, since most of my favorites I've bought multiples over the years. Now, doing deluxe figures is nothing new. It's been there almost since day one. It's used for most toy lines to extend the amount of planogram space and to give parents and gift givers the chance to buy up, if you will, from a basic figure to a deluxe figure that might be at a better giftable price point based on, well, the appropriateness of the occasion. The original deluxe figures, which we're looking at here from Power of the Force 2, were all kind of like the original, those mini rigs we had in the 80s, like slightly off-camera things that weren't quite in the movie. Eventually, by the second wave or so, we got an actually movie-correct deluxe items with movie-accurate pack-ins, as well as original characters or droids, like this probe droid that was sold as a deluxe figure in the second or third assortment. I think it was the first that was actually a unique, is this a figure? I guess it's a figure. And some of the other sort of, not attempts, because they were successful, I mean, methods of doing deluxe figures. There was everything from adding electronics, to adding gunner stations, to adding whole little planets with little flying creatures. Hey, lots of ways to play out that planogram space. Now, this is not a deluxe figure. This is a multi-pack. A deluxe figure is a figure with one large item. And that's what brings us today's Power of the Jedi item. We had Princess Leia with sail barge cannon, as so noted on the blister. And so we were back to basic figures packed with large items, but this time they were movie accurate, as opposed to, again, that first wave of, with Luke's little sand skiff thing and Han's giant backpack for grabbing things. Now, this is not the first Slave Leia we've had, or Hut Slayer Leia, is that what we're calling her now? Doing, merchandise for this version of Leia was extremely popular when the line first hit, because we hadn't had any in the 80s, and it was great to have this needed version, this costume. These days, not so much. Disney has kind of shied away from doing more merchandise based on this Leia, but we did get a great figure with rooted hair, soft goods, and more accurately proportioned. You remember that scene on the sail barge where Leia's doing that whole car show thing, showing off the new laser gun to the people that she's about to blast in the face? Okay, well, maybe not that exact shot, but yeah, she did interact with this cannon, so it makes sense, and for kids it had two projectiles, which makes it very kid-friendly. Anytime a toy can shoot something, as long as you're not, aiming for the face or someplace else, it's fun. And we did see a reuse of this tool when the HasLab sail barge was created. It was mounted right where it should be, on the deck, with a new paint job, and hey, if you didn't have the old Leia one, now at least, you could buy a whole sail barge to get the gun if you needed. There were some slight differences, mostly in deco, but, it was, again, cool to revisit this and have a second shot at using it. I don't know, was it a retool? I think it's just a repaint. I could be wrong. I don't have the sail barge. I'm pretty sure it was a repaint. Maybe they tooled it all over again. What they did tool all over again was Princess Leia, and they did this 3 times throughout the line, so the one in the middle is the one we're talking about today. It wouldn't be the greatest Slave Leia, Hut Slayer Leia, Bikini Leia, whatever you want to call her, Valerian stealing concept Leia. So, yeah, it was great to have one that was better than the original Power of the Force 2 one, especially in size. But we would get our best one here in the Legacy Collection, and I mean that because of the piece count. Not only did we get Leia and her, stick thingy, and a glass, and a Build-A-Droid piece, but we also got 2 different versions of lower legs, so you could snap together this version and make Leia like she's sitting on Jabba's throne, or his dais, which I love. I always wanted that pose, so it's cool they did that. We got this figure repacked, but sadly without the sitting snap-on part, so only the standing version in the Vintage Collection. This assortment also shipped with a really cool Darth Maul, where we got to see him shirtless with all his tattoos for the first time and a giant robot, but we're not covering prequel figures here, we're just covering classic trilogy, so let's keep doing that. And for the next figure in the deluxe assortment, we're back to some aliens, because aliens sell really well. And when the edict from Lucasfilm was to have 50% classic trilogy, well, you gotta come up with something. So this guy, Amanaman, let's go with that. So this has been a figure that in the vintage line was quite hard to get because he was released very late. He's almost right up there with Yak Face as far as, I guess, rarity. And likewise, there was a figure that a lot of us didn't have. Now, he is there in the movie. He's in the back right next to Han on Carbonite there. There's a closer shot of him. He was also known as Headhunter or Banana Guy on set, kind of like Walrus Man. Now, one of the things the vintage figure did is it gave us a bad perception of how tall this character is, making it look like he's really tall like Yak Face, when in truth, he's actually the same height as Klaatu or any of the other characters. He's not extremely tall. The figure is what made it look like that. So, yeah, when you look at him compared to Effin Mon there, you can tell. So, while the figure had a little bit of height, the collectability didn't really, it didn't matter that it was inaccurate because, again, it was a really cool-looking, very different Star Wars alien. And getting a modern version, and this is the only modern version we've ever gotten. He has not been redone since this figure. He was made deluxe with piece count, as opposed to a giant sail barge cannon. So I suppose giving him his staff, the fact that he's got giant oversized arms, he's carrying around a skeleton, and he's got this guy, Salacious B. Crumb, the most Muppet of all characters introduced in Return of the Jedi. This is the same tool that came with the Mail-Away Ula figure from kind of the mid-time of Power of the Force 2, and so this Salacious B. Crumb would get reused until he was eventually replaced with a new, more articulated version, first introduced here with C-3PO and Salacious Crumb. We'll get to that toy in time and talk about its inconsistencies. And then, of course, there's the infamous single-carded version, only released as part of a giant San Diego Comic-Con set, which left a lot of fans upset since this was considered part of the numbering. All right, well, most of us fondly remember Salacious Crumb as kids from, getting it with Jabba, and the fact that, I think 50,000 of them showed up on the free market recently. But if you wanted him, you had to get him with Amanaman. And here was another character in that species, again showing how tall they are, but they're not that tall, at least not in Return of the Jedi. Maybe in the expanded universe they get taller. Either way, we only had this other guy from his species. We never got him again. So if you want him in the modern line, there's only one choice. All right, next up, one of my favorite toys of the entire line, Bacta Tank Luke, which, makes such a great toy, right? When you see Luke floating in, his underwear, an adult diaper, in a tube with droids around him, that looks very merchandisable, right? I don't know. The point is, it was so wacky and crazy, like, oh my god, I can't believe they made Luke in his floating diaper thingy in a glass tube. That's crazy. You just don't see this done as toys. So now, Bacta tanks have become trendy, shall we say, recently. I mean, they show up on Disney Plus with all sorts of characters floating in them, but Luke floating in one in Echo Base was the OG Bacta tank, and the figure, much like Leia, was with an oversized accessory, as opposed to Amanaman, which was going for piece count to make him deluxe. Now, this, I think, is probably one of the best deluxe figures we've ever had, because, well, we never got this piece again, and it does offer a lot of value. Besides the fact that we've got Luke and a little computer stand for a medical droid, it has a play feature that a lot of people kind of forget about. So, quite simply put, you take the figure, you pull him out, fill it with any kind of water. I do suggest sink water made of dihydrogen oxide, but, you can use bottled water too. And then place him back in, and you blow on this little straw here, and he does little bubbles, just like in the movie, like he's breathing. That's awesome. No batteries needed, and you get a really cool play feature. It's one of the reasons I love this toy. And also because I see a very memorable moment in, Empire Strikes Back when we think Luke is going to die, and he survives by, again, being floated in water. The last really cool thing about this set is it had a spot for the as-yet unreleased FX7 droid that fit perfectly right there. So, yeah, it was like a whole scene come to life, ready to go. You just added your medical droid, sold separately, and bam, there's Luke in Bacta Tank. Another figure that's never been redone. And honestly, the chances of seeing this figure get another crack at plastic, probably slim to none. So, if you not like it's that hard to hunt down, but without all of the deluxe stuff, it does look kind of weird. He's got holes in the back, but that's for the bubbles to come out. So, it at least thought that through. So, while he doesn't really look good outside of the tank, in it, it's perfect. And he never really needs to come out because, it's not like he walks around in his, diaper thing. Will we ever get a single carded release? Probably not. But this one's not that expensive on the aftermarket. And if you want to pick it up, it really is worth it because it's the only time we've ever gotten a Bacta tank. And now you could use it for all your Disney Plus characters, too. Everyone needs some good old healing, and we don't all have Moon Knight's armor. I mean, deluxe figures would continue, but this was kind of where it peaked out, because after this we were getting things like figures with glasses and figures that come with 2 stormtrooper helmets. Yeah, wait a minute. That just doesn't seem right. That stormtrooper helmets are the same equivalent of an entire Bacta tank. Well, times they are a-changing. I think we should really appreciate what we've gotten over the years, because yes, 2 stormtrooper helmets, I don't think it makes a deluxe figure. But hey, margins are margins and prices are going up. Either way, we had a Bacta tank, and I'm happy about that.